From LateNighter.com, it's Inside Late Night with Mark Malkoff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Inside Late Night with Mark Malkoff. My name is Jon Schneider, a producer for Inside Late Night, and I'm so excited to be here to present to you a great interview that Mark has with Jon Glaser today on the podcast. He is a fantastic storyteller and talks about his time working for Late Night with Conan, as well as some other work that he did in Late Night. He was, of course, a part of the Second City main stage cast. He did guest write for Saturday Night Live and did a day as a correspondent on The Daily Show. So he has a lot of experience in late night TV. You may also know him from some sitcoms, had a big role on Parks and Rec and Girls. So Jon Glaser is a great guest, and we are so excited to present to you our conversation here today. So without further ado, here is Mark Malkoff.
Jon Glaser, nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, I guess, for the first time.
Yeah, we've been around each other a few times. I've seen you around the Luna Lounge type alt rooms, and you would do some really, really funny offbeat stuff. I mean, we're going to get to that. I want to talk about some things that I don't know about you, because I know, I used to go to the Dana Carvey tapings, and so I want to talk about Carvey as well. But I want to go about the summer of '95. You were you had been at Second City. You were Pinata Full of Bees, directed by Tom Giannis. It was a big deal, which I got to see that show. And they fly you to New York to audition for Saturday Night Live. What was your audition like? Take me through it.
It was, at the time, I remember thinking that the way, at least at the time, and I would assume it's the same or if not similar, they asked you to prepare a political impression, a celebrity impression, and then some kind of original character. And so at the time, Bill Clinton's president, I figure everyone's going to be doing their Bill Clinton impression. Everyone's going to be doing like the more popular choices, which is probably the smarter choice. But I decided that I'm going to do something different, so it's different. And hopefully that would stand out somehow. And so I ended up doing King Hussein of Jordan as my political impression, really for no good reason, other than I thought it was funny and different. And I ended up doing a thing where he talked about, and this ended up making it onto Dana Carvey Show, although I did not do it. But I did King Hussein of Jordan, just talking about how he really loves to relax in a bubble bath, and the bubbles really help him de-stress. Being the leader of a country in that region is obviously very stressful. And the bubble baths really help him relax. And he talked about he had a friendship with Sting. And I remember at the time, I'm old, so this is before internet where you can just click on a picture and print it. I had to go to the library, look up a photo of King Hussein of Jordan, a photo of Sting, print these out, take them home, cut out, so I found a photo of Sting from Dune where he's, I guess, holding somebody by the throat or something like that. And so I cut out King Hussein of Jordan's head, taped it on that picture so it looks like Sting and King Hussein of Jordan are hanging out. And I folded it up a bunch of times and put it in my wallet so it looked wrinkled and old. So when I was doing my audition, talked about how he was friends with Sting, pulled out this photo of him and Sting. And then my celebrity impression was not much of a celebrity. I decided to do then head coach of the Detroit Lions, Wayne Fontes. It was like really obscure reference, which I was hoping from a comedy standpoint would have value. And also just, this is not something anyone else is going to do. Not a very good impression either, and certainly not anyone that anyone even would know of unless you're a real sports fan. And then the whatever original character was just some dude like my neighbor, and it was just like some weird dude, and it was really not that funny, I don't think. But Robert Smigel, who was a longtime SNL writer and at the time had been Conan's original head writer, EP, he was now the EP of Dana Carvey Show, and he had access to all the SNL tapes. And he was wanting to see, whoever they didn't hire for SNL, he wanted to look at the tapes, and he really liked mine. And he got in touch with Tom Giannis, who he was friends with, and said, make sure Glaser does that same audition for Dana Carvey. So that was really exciting to know about. And I did all that for my Dana impression or audition, or I don't know if I did I think I did King Who Say. Anyway, I did that, and they ended up telling me they were not going to hire me as a cast member, but asked if I'd be interested as a writer. And at the time, I had never thought of myself as a writer. It was not something I was thinking of as a career in any way, shape, or form. I just thought of myself as an actor and an improviser and a comedian. But this was an opportunity. So if it was a sitcom, I don't know if I would have said yes or at least tried to submit. I don't even know if I could have done that.
For the Dana Carvey writers, it would you, Bill Cott, Stephen Colbert, and Steve Carell didn't have to do writing packets. You all got credits, but you got hired just based on your audition.
For me, no. For those guys, yes, because they were actors. For me, first, Robert saw my SNL audition. Then I did an audition for Dana Carvey Show as an actor. And based on those things, they asked me to submit as a writer. And so that's where I just spent some time at home coming up with sketches. I didn't have a writing packet. Writing was not something I was doing on a daily basis just to hone my craft. I never thought of myself as a writer. And so I had to just kind of come up with some sketch ideas that I submitted, and they liked it. They flew me out there to interview. At the time, it was Robert, Louis C.K. was the head writer. Dino Stamatopoulos was already there, and a guy named Mike Stoyanoff, who was also one of the writers. And I met those guys, very loose, casual interview. Didn't last very long. Went to the airport, flew back. This was a little before Thanksgiving, sometime in November. And so the rest of the year went by, and I thought, all right, I guess I didn't get it. And really at the time, I had just finished that Pinata Full of Bees show. And the new show was about to start rehearsals with a director named Mick Napier, who's a Chicago legend.
Annoyance.
The Annoyance Theater. And so I was very excited to work with Mick. So for me, it was a win-win. I get this great job, great. Or if not, I'm still at Second City, which is a dream job, getting to work with this legendary director. And about a week into rehearsals, we're at the theater just rehearsing, and someone comes in, hey, there's a phone call for you at the box office. There's no cell phones at the time. So they tracked me down at Second City, and I go into the office and take the call, and it's Robert saying, hey, we're going to hire you. Can you be here in a week? And so it's pretty incredible. I go back in the theater and I tell everyone I got hired, and probably I don't even know if I finished the day. I think I just went home and started packing and just had to pretty much pack up my stuff and move everything to New York. Because even at the time, I thought, I had already done a main stage show. As much as it just felt like now that I've got this job opportunity, I'm just going to go to New York. And even if it doesn't get picked up, I'm going to stay there. Like, it didn't feel like, it felt weird to think about doing this job. Let's say it doesn't get picked up, then going back to Chicago. It just felt like keep moving forward. So pretty much packed up my life and moved to New York. And that's pretty much the story of how I got that job. I don't even know if that was the question you asked.
Chicago Tribune that December, they put something out in 1995 that you had gotten hired at Carvey. So you go to Carvey, and it was hard for a lot of writers to get stuff on. Other than Leaders and Their Bats, what else did you get on? Because I know some, unless your name was Robert Smigel, Dino, or Louis,
Yeah.
I know that it could be a challenge for some people to get stuff on. How did you do with getting stuff on, and what did you get on?
I'm trying to remember what else. I didn't get much on. It was, I think they were just being really, wanting to make sure that they were really trying to get what they consider like the best stuff from the most experienced guys. And it was a little tougher to get stuff on. Not that people didn't get stuff on. I know I had a couple other things. I had the World Leaders in Their Baths, which was again from my audition. And even at the time, Smigel ended up doing King Hussein, and he was extremely funny doing it. And I was just, this is my first big job. I was very young. I kind of wish I would have maybe said, hey, what if I do it? But I wasn't thinking of that and advocating for myself. And also Robert just nailed it. It was so funny. I'm trying to remember what else. I feel like I got one other thing. There was something Colbert and I wrote where he was like a newscaster, and there was something where...
Was it the nice news? Was it like the overly polite news, or was it
it was something where
the good news, or
It wasn't that. It was something where, like there was some hidden identity interviews, and like we replaced his voice with that of a little girl. Like one person
Oh
had
yeah, I
a girl
remember.
voice, one person had Isaac Hayes maybe did a cameo, and maybe his voice was the little girl.
Yeah.
And then there was probably a couple other small things I got on, but I really can't remember what they were.
Didn't last very long, but I remember going to the tapings. I was at they did a rap party, which was an open bar a couple blocks away from CBS Broadcast Center. Got to
Wow.
go to that,
How are
which
you?
was fun.
Yeah.
I was going to NYU. Robert took pity on me. I had known him a little bit just from going to Conan when they couldn't fill the audience. I know by the time you got there, Conan had been pretty established. But I mean, when in, 93, early 94, they couldn't fill the 199 seats for a lot of the tapings. I mean, he was so unpopular, and Robert got a kick out of me as a teen, and he was very, very nice to me. You were credited, somebody told me, when Rudy Giuliani hosted Saturday Night Live in November of '97. They gave you a writing credit at the end of the show. What did you write on that episode?
I don't think I got anything on. I don't know how SNL does it, but they'll hire people like as guest writers where you come in for a week, 2 weeks. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a tryout or what, but they brought me in for a couple weeks. Giuliani was the host on one of those weeks. I don't think I got anything to air, but I did work there that week. And then who was the other person when I was there? Maybe that's the only week I did. It was Giuliani. Anyway.
What was that like being over there? I mean, famously, Stephen Colbert did 4 episodes, and as I said recently to somebody, Stephen wanted to stay, and they felt the opposite. I mean, a
Colbert?
lot of funny people. Yeah, I mean, he was there for 4 episodes. I think 90, maybe the year before 96, maybe, or it was after
As a
Carvey.
writer?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was there for
Oh,
4
wow.
episodes. But what did you witness? I mean, you were friends with some of the Chicago people. I mean, I don't think Tina was there yet. Maybe she had just gotten there, but like McKay certainly was there. Adam McKay, who you knew from Chicago, and Tom Giannis.
I don't know. For me, I certainly was hoping to get hired there at the time. It was a real, obviously huge job. I was really, and I knew so many, like you said, I knew a lot of people on camera, off camera. They hired me as a guest writer. I really felt like it felt like why wouldn't I get hired? And no idea why. And I didn't really think about it much other than, oh, well, I did a couple guest writing stints, actually. I did one, there was that one. And then I did one years later, right after I quit Conan, actually, when my son was born. They were just nice to, like, even Conan brought me in for a month just for some work right after my son was born. And then I did a week of SNL. But it was, it's a weird place. There's been so many stories and it's been talked about plenty, but it feels very competitive. It feels very stressful. It's a lot of fun. I had a great time when I was there, mostly because I knew people, thankfully. But yeah, I don't know. It was always weird to me that I wouldn't have gotten hired, but at the same time, whatever. But it feels like there's a lot of that where I had heard a little bit about, oh, he wants to be a performer, and they wouldn't be sure about hiring me as a writer. Maybe it was like, to think about even someone like Colbert not getting hired there. It's just crazy. And so,
Yeah, you were his understudy in Chicago, and yeah, he's one of the funniest people ever at a day job working at his show. So yeah, you never know with these things. I mean, they passed on Kevin Hart. They passed on, I mean, Galifianakis. I think Zach Galifianakis wrote maybe for 2 episodes as a guest writer, and he wanted to stay, and he was gone. So you never know.
yeah, none of it makes sense to me. Who knows why? Whatever the rhyme or reason is, I don't know. I try not to
Yeah.
think too much about it, because really not getting SNL, because I auditioned in '95 and not getting it, I look back on it now as one of the best things to ever happen, because it allowed me to get that Dana Carvey job, which was such an incredibly good experience, despite all the crazy, shitty stuff surrounding the show and, the way that all worked out. And ultimately, more so getting Conan. Like, Conan to me was the ultimate dream job for me, where it just the much better fit than SNL would ever have been. And even who knows if I got SNL? How does that work out? Would I have enjoyed it? Would I have been happy? What happens from there? How do things unfold? So from
There's still people, cast members and writers that are in therapy, that have been in therapy with SNL, and the environment over at Conan, really nice. And I'm not saying SNL wasn't always like that, but it's just more of a pressure cooker. But when you auditioned that summer for SNL, who are the other Chicago people did they fly out from that show? I mean, I think it was Adam McKay. Did Jenna also? Did they fly her out? What's her name? Jenna
Jenna Jolovitz.
Yeah, but Tina, famously, they didn't fly out to audition. They had no interest in her at that point.
I'm not sure if Tina was on a stage yet at that point in '95 because I was doing main stage. Tina was not yet on main stage. She might have been touring. I don't know if she did
Okay,
ETC.
she wasn't on main stage at that point. Okay, I thought she
No,
was.
not yet. So when I auditioned, it was like McKay, and then people got hired. You know, Keckner, Nancy Walls, Carell. Oh no, not Carell. Most people auditioned, not everybody, but a lot of
Okay.
people auditioned, and yeah, it's a whatever. It's a weird fucking place.
I know that you did at least one or two real audios with Smigel when he did his TV Funhouse. You did one with Drew Barrymore hosted, and they did that. It was a Hollywood film producer, Walter. Was it? How do you say his name? Mirish, and him accepting some award. I don't know if you recall working with Robert on that at all. It was a long time
I
ago.
remember doing a couple voices, and it was just nice of him to, you know, give me some work at the time. But it wasn't anything where I thought. I mean, I remember Dino and I joking, like, "Oh my God, we're going to be on Saturday Night Live!" Like, just almost making a joke of it, like doing a voice on a cartoon. But that's really all that was, as opposed to, "Ooh, I got a foot in the door." Like, I couldn't have been more in than literally working there.
I know that you were credited in 2006 with The Lonely Island. There was a digital short with Andy Samberg. This was Julia Louis-Dreyfus hosted, and it was Andy Samberg threatening to jump, and the reveal is that he's not jumping from a high building. He's just like like an inch or two from the sidewalk. How did you come about writing that piece?
I don't even recall writing it or being maybe I contributed a joke. Like, that's one of the things about working there that always seemed bothersome to me was that, and listen, I'm not looking to slam the show, but this is just my experience was, people really were always scrambling to get their initials on a script so they could,
It's true.
I contribute, that's the thing that always felt really dysfunctional to me is just everybody's trying to get their name on something so they get something on the air. So that I don't even remember that, quite honestly. And maybe I knew those guys. We were pretty friendly back then, and maybe I just had a joke that ended up in the script. I remember writing something with Andy for Dress that didn't make it to air. So I don't know, but that was, I worked there for a week or two. Again, that was 2006, right after my son was born.
That was on the Alec Baldwin show, Dress, and it got cut, and then they aired it, I think, the week or two like later. Yeah,
Jesus, where do you find all these details, man?
there's something wrong with me, John. I was gonna ask when Conan went in to host the show, host SNL, in I believe it was March of 2001. Tina Fey later made a kind of a big deal that Jon Stewart and Conan didn't bring in their own people, but I remember being at that after party. And the one sketch I wanted to know who wrote it, somebody mentioned that you had something to do with it, which was my favorite one was I can never say this, Moleculo.
The molecular man.
But didn't I was told at that party, and then other people asked, like, "Oh no, Conan didn't bring in anybody." Didn't you have something to do with that sketch?
I helped him with it. He basically had this idea. It was his idea.
It was so
And
funny.
it was so funny. And he just asked, like, "Hey, do you want to look at it?" And maybe, so I was not working there that week, but I think I helped him with it and, or maybe took a look at it, but really had very little to do with it. I don't know. I can't remember. I might have written a couple jokes for it, but that was his idea. And he asked me to look at it because we really shared an affinity for that type of character, the smug, overconfident douchebag. And yeah, that to me was so hilarious.
That was one of my favorite sketches.
It's so funny.
After Dana Carvey in June of 1996 at the Kennedy Center, you did Pinata Full of Bees, which you'd done in Chicago, and this was Steve Carell, Dave Keckner, Adam McKay, Tim Meadows, Nancy Walls, and Teresa Mulligan. What was that experience like?
Really cool. Very, very fun just to get to perform there. Although now, sadly, it's been taken over and it's a fucking bummer, but we don't have to talk about that. But yeah, so getting to do something at the Kennedy Center was very cool. Being in DC for a month was really fun, with a bunch of extremely funny people. One of my favorite parts, there's a couple things that really stand out, whereas one, I think we kind of did a similar Second City schedule where we did shows. We did 2 shows on Friday and Saturday. That's what we would do in Chicago. And there was Friday, there was no improv set, but Saturday there would be an improv set after the late show. I can't remember if we did that in DC, but we did an improv set after maybe most of the shows. But in any case, between 2 of the shows, one of those nights, Adam McKay and I went just kind of exploring like the catacombs of the Kennedy Center. And we came upon whatever theater it was, and Beauty and the Beast was playing at the time. And we're backstage in the middle of the show, and there's some kind of song happening on stage, not with the Beast, because the guy playing Beast is backstage in this gigantic costume with a giant head. The head is off and just resting on the floor, and the actor is just having a cigarette break by himself, quietly sitting behind this, backstage as this musical is happening in front of the curtain. And we were just cracking up. It was so fucking funny just to see this dude in this costume, and then we just bolted back. The other thing that made me laugh the most was, Pinata Full of Bees was not just a straight down the middle, super accessible show necessarily, plenty funny. But it had a specific sensibility to it. And we did this improv game where we would leave Post-it note, like after the show, we'd come out and say, okay, we're going to improvise later. Be ready with your suggestions. One night we did a thing where we left a stack of Post-it notes at the front of the stage and a bunch of pens and said, okay, what we're asking you to do is write down an improv suggestion, tape it face down with a Post-it note, do it at the lip of the stage. We'll come down during the improv set. Someone will grab a Post-it, read the suggestion. We'll improvise a scene. So we did that. We did a few scenes. At some point, someone lifts up a Post-it and it reads, your dark, edgy humor doesn't play here, or something along those lines, like calling out the tone of the show and the sensibility. Without even missing a beat, McKay comes right down to the front of the stage, and he's like, all right, everybody, get ready. We got something really fun for you. Please welcome Poopy Pants. And Keckner comes out doing this character. Now, I found out later this was something Keckner would do, like fucking around at SNL. This was after these guys' first year at SNL. And so it was kind of like a ready-made thing, even though they weren't planning on doing it. And it was just a response to that shitty little, like, your edgy humor doesn't play here. Start doing this really fucking stupid character Keckner had been doing, I guess, fucking around, called Poopy Pants. And so it just becomes all these scenes, and everybody is just no one's missing a beat. They're all doing these scenes with Keckner. And it was just one of the dumbest, funniest things I've ever seen. Like, I remember the funniest line was, and Keckner was like, just doing, he had a catchphrase. Like, it was all the like making fun of the character that's got the catchphrase. That's stupid. And his guy was Poopy Pants. Like, I just poop my pants. Just as dumb as it can be, but intentionally so. And so like there was one scene where Tim Meadows was his agent, and Keckner's like, man, I don't poop my pants till page 10. Like, he was really angry about that the script took so long for him to shit his pants. And then another scene, I think it was Carell was playing the doctor. He's like, Poopy Pants, I'm sorry, I've got some really bad news. You have cancer. And Keckner just goes, cancer? And then he turns to the audience and, like, with big jazz hands goes, tell me it ain't my colon. And just the fucking dumbest thing, but it was such a perfect response to that Post-it note. And I just, God damn it, I think about that all the time. So stupid.
It was a pretty revolutionary show at Second City, and I remember because I saw it, just one of the sketches with, I think, wasn't it 2 people in wheelchairs and then one of them was pretending? I mean, they're definitely, for some people, I guess, that were used to maybe some of the other Second City that maybe it was a little bit edgy, a little bit more edgy, but
Yeah, it's hard to say, like, as far as what's edgy, what's not edgy, what's revolutionary. I don't know if I'd call it revolutionary because it was something that, it was more of a long form improv type show. And there were two factions at the time. There's Second City and then Improv Olympic, which was teaching more long form. And that's really where a lot of people like myself came from. The older Second City, like lights up, lights down, sketch style, cabaret style.
the rock music in
Yeah,
between
and
sketches.
listen, and I'm not knocking that. There was clearly many, many, many great shows. We just wanted to do something different. That's really all it was. And some people bristled at that. I think a lot of people that were more, the older generation, so to speak, was like, that's not what we do here. And I totally respect that. But I also feel like there's room to try something different. And so we wanted to try something different. It was more of a long form show and certainly had more of a specific sensibility. If you want to say it's darker, edgier, I'm not sure, but you can always argue that. In any case, that was the kind of show we did. The wheelchair scene was actually me and Scott Adsit, and it was a scene where we're both in a wheelchair basketball league. At some point, we're, horsing around, and I get out of my chair and reveal that I can actually walk. And it's this big blow to the friendship. And then it turns into a song, about
Yeah.
really tender song about, it was literally like, it's a tender scene about two guys in wheelchairs. And it sings a song of the betrayal, but it was really fun. Yeah, that's the show we did in DC for the most part. I think we added some older sketches here and there, but that was kind of what we tried.
Yeah, got good reviews in DC, and yeah, it sounds like it was a lot of fun and successful. What was your Conan packet like? What year did you submit to Conan? I know that one of the things that you did put in your packet, and I want to hear what else was. Ended up you got a TV show using the idea of eventually for Dislocated. That was in your Conan packet, I believe, is one of the ideas.
That is correct. I had submitted to Conan, I think, a couple times. I submitted after Dana Carvey Show got canceled. Everyone's trying to get a job. I submitted to SNL, submitted to Conan. Took a couple rounds before I finally got hired at Conan. I was very fortunate. Certainly Robert Smigel, I'm so deeply thankful to for helping just get my packet looked at. But at the time, I was actually living in LA. I had moved to LA. I had gotten a couple of writing jobs out there. I was living there at the time in 97. And one of the things I started doing this witness protection program character at a live show that I was doing with a couple friends, Laura Kraft and Rich Fulcher. We were just doing a live show where we each did a one person type show, even though it was mostly just dumb bits. And so I had this witness protection program character idea of this really smug impressionist that had really shitty, hacky impressions, but he still yearned to be a performer. He had a thirst for fame. And so he put on a ski mask and pitched his voice down like you hear on the news so he could still go out and perform. And the joke was that all of his shitty impressions, they just sound like that same voice. But super confident, smug guy. That was in my packet. I'm trying to remember what else was in my packet that might have made it to air. That was definitely in there though. And I did that character a handful of times on Conan and then ended up doing Delocated for Adult Swim. It was just a character that I just loved so much and I thought there was just something there beyond just the joke and thankfully got to make it. So yeah.
I love that you're wearing your Late Night with Conan O'Brien 5th anniversary t-shirt. What was that anniversary like?
I pulled this out of storage. I just got this shirt. This was, my dad passed away in 2016 and I went home last year. My stepmom finally sold their house. And so when I went home to help her finish like packing things up, throwing things away, going through his stuff, I found this. I just gave this to him years ago. And so I brought this back with me. I really never wear it. I hate wearing swag. I always feel like an asshole. Like, look what I was in. It just feels weird to me. So most things went to my dad. He, of course, loved wearing everything. So this was actually and most of that stuff I just don't save. Like he had some other Conan stuff that I just got rid of. I'm never going to wear it. But this one was really cool to see because this is when I got hired there in April of 98. And that fall was the 5-year anniversary. So it was cool to get there and be there for that, because the show had really hit a stride, was really getting popular. They were doing such cool stuff. And so to get hired at that time was pretty incredible, to say the least. And I was there for 5 years, almost to the day. Um, I remember just hanging out for that rehearsal for that show. Like, I think I was hanging out with Polar, maybe, because those guys had moved to New York and they were just starting UCB, and we're all there kind of on the heels of Chicago. And god damn, that was so fun.
It's amazing. You've Brian McCann, and Brian Stack, Kevin Dorff later, a lot of Chicago people. You were there for 5 years. How long did it take you to relax? I mean, did you feel a lot of pressure that you put on yourself in the beginning, or were you able to just relax initially?
The head writer at the time, Jonathan Groff, was the head writer who was there when I got hired. And he of course, I'm very nervous, very excited. And again, like knowing people there, Stack was not there. Oh, wait, no, Stack was there. So Stack, McCann, this guy named Tommy Blacha, who I knew a little bit, and we became very good friends later, and Richter a little bit, but not much. Dorff was not there yet. So, but there were a few Chicago people there, as well as SNL people. So I at least, it didn't feel too nerve-wracking and scary. There was a lot of familiar faces, and then everyone's just nice. The environment's pretty laid back and supportive. Still impossible not to be nervous, like, how's this going to go? Am I going to get stuff on? Am I going to do well? But early on, Jonathan Groff was constantly making jokes about firing me. Like, that's okay. We're probably, you're probably not lasting long anyway. And I really took comfort in those, because I thought if they were really genuinely thinking that, they would never, ever make those jokes. There's no way. And so I really enjoyed those from multiple standpoints of like, okay, good. I'm okay. They're not firing me. So early on, I was getting stuff on. So I was really right away feeling like this is just a good fit for me. And just everybody there is so nice. They really do a good job of hiring people that are just, first of all, very, very funny, but also really confident and thick-skinned. And, most people that I worked with there just didn't give a shit. Like, your stuff doesn't get on, it's okay. You're not going to lose your job. It's a very supportive environment. I don't know. My overall experience there was really, really great.
What was something early on that you were really excited that you got on, that you felt good about, that gave you some confidence?
Certainly the witness protection guy. It just, immediately got on. That was one of the first things I did, and we did it a bunch of times, and I just loved that bit. And that was one. There was a couple other things that I did. Like, one of them was this thing Stack and I did, I think pretty early on. These two like black guys wearing black hoodies, and they would just kind of appear, like, if you can see my hands, like in the corners of the screen.
Is
Like
it Jeremy and Ira?
Jeremy and Ira.
You guys from another dimension? That was it, right?
Yeah, and we did that a ton. And
Yeah.
those were, I think, early on and tremendously fun and weird, and really just came about by accident. Like, I think, we would all, if you had a piece on, you'd be downstairs in the studio for rehearsal. And I think that's just how that happened. Like, someone was probably sitting low and their head popped up. Might have even been me or Stack. And we were like, oh, this is kind of funny. Look at that. Pretending to be these guys. And then we just wrote this bit, and it was so much fun.
Yeah. Who are some of the guests, the celebrity guests that you pitched bits to that said yes, and who are some that said no?
Certainly, some of the more memorable ones, when we did those celebrity secrets, that just became a really fun gag, or a fun bit that a lot of people wanted to do. I mean, I got to meet David Bowie, which, that'll probably never top in almost any job I do. And he did the celebrity secrets, and I helped run a lot of those, not all of them, but a bunch. And so getting to meet him, I had this at the time, CD box set called Nuggets, which was a lot of like 60s kind of, garage rock. And when he was, I think, Davy Jones, and he had this great song on there, and I brought that down, and he signed it. We chatted about it. Like, he was so disarming and just nice, really friendly. No pretense about him at all. That was really cool. Henry Winkler was fun just because he's so nice, and I know his stepson, so that was fun to chat with him. As far as people passing, I don't really remember who passed on what, but the one thing that always sticks out to me is if there's someone that we were really excited to meet and maybe they had said no to a bit, it was still fun to go down and meet them. And we'd get this often enough where it was annoying, where we'd say, "Oh, hey, sorry you couldn't do that bit, but it's so great to meet you." And more often than not, they were like, "What bit?" They would never even hear about it. It was usually someone's publicist, who are usually just fucking awful. Like, they don't even bother showing it to the person. And then they don't even know about it. And they're like, "Oh, I would have loved that." And the publicist or the agent is like, "We better not show them this. They'll think it's so annoying." And they have no idea they're doing more harm than good when you find out the person would have loved to have done it. So, but those were some people. I mean, Bowie was still like, I can't believe it was, what a cool moment.
Could you write something the day before and get it on? Like, I'm thinking like the Incredible Hulk piece with the where it's the Hulk, but only his wrist turns
Oh,
green.
Wrist Hulk. That might have been in my packet. That
Oh,
seems like it, but I'm not sure. But to answer your question, there's so much stuff that came up either the night before, where you're just trying to think of something. Like, it's really one of the great things about that show is because it's a daily show, at some point you have to just try things. You don't have the luxury of just really, really curating everything perfect. And because it was a show like Conan, being led by Conan, who already has that sensibility, more often than not, you're trying weird shit. There's always the stuff at the top of the show. The desk piece stuff is what that was called. And, there's plenty of celebrity driven jokes, which were never my favorite. And I don't think anyone's favorite, but Conan always likened it. He's like, yeah, that's, the weird rocket still has to have the fuel. You have to have rocket fuel to drive the ship. And you've got to do more of those refillable things. And some of them were not as fun as like the celebrity stuff, but some like satellite TV, real ads like that, where you could be really creative and inventive. Those were just so much fun to write. So it always balanced out, I think. And the gap between really fun stuff and not fun stuff was so wide that it was never a real issue. Maybe until when I quit. I had been there 5 years. The gap had narrowed, and it was never going to go the other way. It was always just kind of hover around 50-50, 60-40. And so that's when I knew maybe it was time to go, at least for me. And it was still very, very hard to leave such a great job.
Oh, so most people that are writers there stay there for a lot longer than that. Andy Blitz was telling me about Slipknot, about how you came up with it. It was just hanging out late one night, and I was going to ask you, when you did open up for Slipknot, did you have any anxiety at all that that the people there that paid all that money that were there to see the band, and that they really? I'm guessing most of the people that were there had no idea who you all were, that you were Conan writers. Did you have any anxiety before that, going out there in front of the audience?
The anxiety that I had personally was that I'm going to take like a battery to the eye. I'm going to lose my eye tonight. I had resigned myself, like, all right, you're going to lose an eye. Just go with it. Like, people are going to be fucking whipping shit at the stage. That's what I thought. And even like the stage manager said, just keep moving. Don't be an easy target. And so I wasn't worried about anything other than that, which is still legit. But I also thought it was certainly nerve-wracking in one sense, only because I thought, people are going to be throwing shit, but nothing's probably going to happen. Really, I thought the band was so into the idea. They were the ones that said yes to it, and they were way into it, and they were all super cool about it, and they wanted it. So I figured some of their audience is going to know who we are just from them being on the show and having seen this bit. And certainly there's people that are not going to know. So for me, it was mostly just, I don't want to lose a fucking eye or take a battery to the throat. And it was so fun. It was so funny. Truly one of the most fun bits that I ever did on that show. But yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking for sure.
When you came up with the maraca player that's playing with the band, did you originally pitch that for this guy's going to stay there for a lot of the show, or was it just an Act 5 originally that it was just going to be? How did that evolve? And can you talk about that? You're wearing that orange and black outfit. You have the wig on with the pencil thin mustache, and
Oh man, it's if do you have a link to that? If you do, because I've that's one of my absolute favorite bits that
oh
I
yeah,
did on the
no, it's amazing because the build is what I really like about it as well. Because I know there were probably for sure some people that were watching that might not have originally weren't sure if what this was, if this was a bit or not completely.
I definitely pitched it as from the beginning of the show. To me, it was so funny if we just have me there at the very beginning. We just treat it like it's real. Hopefully, people won't necessarily know right away. And thankfully, we got to do it like that. Later on, as we did more bits like that, I think we started doing fewer of them just because it became a thing. Like, now we've done that enough. But the maraca guy was so fun because he never spoke and just had that great look. And it was such a weird choice. Like, why is this guy? And then the reveal of like, I didn't ask him. I thought you asked him. Like, I'm so glad that we got to do it from the get go. And like every commercial break coming in and out of the commercials, there he is. It was
Then you run off, and then you get caught, and you're just like,
yeah, waiting for the elevator, still doing the maracas. Hurry up, elevator, get me out of here. Yeah, that was, if not my favorite bit that I've done on the show, certainly one of them. But I think that might be my favorite.
when you did live sketches, when you and sometimes McCann would be with you, did they ever have to stop tape? Did they ever? Because they usually treated the show like live to tape, but did they ever, for whatever reason, if there was a line blown or did something happen where they actually had to stop and redo something?
Dude, you're talking to pros. No, I don't know if that ever happened. I can't really think of a time that happened. It must have. I just can't recall, or maybe we had to do a pickup later, but we really tried very, very hard to just have this be a show without stopping.
That's the way
And
it should be, I think, in late night for sure.
yeah,
The mistakes, everything gets in, and there weren't many mistakes, but I think there was some charm about that.
yeah, I think that's part of it is that it's, even though it's not live, it's recorded live and it's still got that feel and that energy to it. So it's got that quality, which makes it fun. But really, they would always try to make sure it was not like a joke fest and people breaking and laughing and you got to start over. So, yeah, I can't think of anything necessarily. Like, there's certainly times, like one thing that pops to mind because you mentioned McCann, like when we did T Writers Cage, T Copywriters Cage Match was a sketch we did where McCann and I were competing copywriters for like Celestial Seasonings and Bigelow Tea, and then we get in this cage match brawl. If you go back and watch that clip, it ends with this spoiler alert where I'm just beating the shit out of him, and you hear these fake, psh, 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 and my back is to camera while I'm pounding him, and if you listen closely, you can hear me start to laugh because it was so fucking dumb, but it's not loud, but whatever. Like, there's all sorts of shit. I mean, whatever that happened like that, but I can't think of a time where we had to stop and start over.
How hard was that leaving after 5 years? Just most of the people, I would think Stack and McCann, and just there were people there that, I mean, Brian Kiley, for example, I mean, they were there for years. How hard was that? And how did you tell Conan that you wanted to leave?
It was excruciatingly hard, even though I knew for myself that it was time. There was kind of like I was saying at the top of this episode, I never thought of myself as a writer, and I always wanted to be a performer. Not that I didn't get to do that on Conan, but the gap had narrowed. It was just the most fun when I started, and it was less so. Not that it was fun up until the end, but I was just burned out and I needed to do something different. That's really the only reason I left. I mean, I was still enjoying it, but not as much. Just the burnout factor took a toll, and I knew that I wanted to do other things, and I didn't have kids yet. And I felt like before I'm like have kids, and it's going to be harder to leave a great job like this. And so that was kind of part of it. And I remember I had a running joke with Mike Sweeney, actually, who became the head writer after Groff, where I gave him an envelope with my resignation letter, and I said, "Put this in your desk. One day I'm going to come in here, and you're going to know when it's that day." And of course, for years, I'd come in his office, and he's like, "Is this it?" And then when it actually happened, he's like, "No, no." And so when I told Conan, I just remember like I had a meeting with him and I was sobbing. I was just so sad. And, I knew it was the right thing to do. And just because something's the right thing to do doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. And it was so hard to leave. I mean, that was and will always be one of the best jobs I've had. It was such a dream job, on so many levels, getting to write, getting to perform with such a great group of people I'd known from Chicago, friends to this day. I mean, just very, very, very hard to leave. But
They gave you a tribute, which was really nice. Not everyone got a tribute at the end of the show.
I know it was simultaneously very nice and very like hilariously embarrassing because they did the pubes, which was still for me like funny, but not the best thing I've ever come up with. And
The joke was how to make something awkward, and it was just somebody that would go in and say
the pubes joke was just he would ruin great moments with the word pubes, which is such a bummer of a word.
Yeah, or holding the sign, but they did that for you. The tribute.
No, I was wearing like a black skin tight like leotard jumpsuit with the word pubes on it, and then I think I had like a perm wig. I mean, we did some funny bits, but yeah, to be remembered as pubes is not your the crowning,
I was wondering if that was
crowning
your choice or
achievement,
not.
a crown of pubes.
Do you think, looking back, that it was necessary for the writers to do 12-hour days? Letterman had his writers do 12-hour days, and that wasn't for the monologue. That's if you were doing sketch. But for so little comedy, I asked Andy Blitz this, and I asked Jonathan Groff recently for a desk piece in an Act 5. Do you think that 12 hours was necessary?
I mean, I don't think so. It certainly always felt like overkill, and I don't really personally recall any days that long. I don't recall many 12-hour days.
Jonathan Groff did say when he was there that as he got there, the head writer, the hours did get better. So I don't know if that was maybe a little bit before that but
maybe it was. I mean,
long.
listen, for a brand new show, I totally get it. That is what's the absolute very best we can do every single night when you're first starting off. Not that we didn't try to do something great every night, but you can't sustain that where it's just genius level comedy every night. That being said, we always did something weird and funny and if nothing else, interesting, or at least I think so for the most part. But yeah, I don't recall the hours ever being that crazy unless it was just something happened, we're not doing this bit now, we need another whatever. But so yeah, I don't think it's necessary unless it's absolutely an emergency or whatever. But again, I don't recall too many days like that.
How long were you at the Daily Show? How many pieces got on? Was it just one or two pieces? How did that come about?
That was a one and done.
How did it come about, and what were your expectations? Did you have expectations, or did you know it was only going to be a one-timer?
I knew it was a possibility, and I figured it was more likely than not. It really just came about because I had quit Conan. I was figuring out what was next. The Daily Show is in New York. I was hot and cold on it as a show just because I didn't. It was still a little bit more, making fun of people in a way that I didn't always love, unless it was a worthy target. And then it started getting a little, or I would even say a lot better. I mean, obviously, like the people on it were so good, but it just had that tendency that I didn't love. But that's also me. Like, I just don't. So I had a tougher time with that. And I think for that reason, it was just not a good fit all around. It was fun to do, but it just didn't feel like, again, like just, no, this is not the right thing for me, and vice versa. So yeah, pretty much a one and done.
Your IMDb is unbelievable in terms of so much that you've done in your career. But I was going to ask for the acting. How often do you actually have to audition? Because I'm guessing for 30 Rock, I guess I could be wrong, or Parks and Recs, where they know you. Do you have to audition for these things, or do they just give you the role?
It really depends. Like 30 Rock, I did not have to audition, although that was such a short little bit. That was just them giving me something fun to do, which was very nice. Parks and Rec, I did not have to audition. That was also, and I think they had me in mind for this part, and I just got it. And that certainly came about from knowing a lot of people there. You know, Amy, I knew Mike Schur a little bit from SNL, not well, but that was obviously a big help, and that was the reason. But even I audition more often than I get jobs. I'm
Like
not.
Girls, 12 episodes I think you did. Did you have to audition for Girls? Did you audition for Curb?
I did audition for Girls, and I did audition for Curb. Yeah, there's still plenty that I audition for. I would say more often than not. I get offered jobs here and there, certainly, but still mostly auditions.
Like Dick Wolf with Law and Order in 2022. He wasn't a big Conan fan. He didn't know who you were, so you auditioned for that, I'm guessing?
I did not. I have no idea. Like, I had never auditioned for the show, so it's not like I had auditioned a bunch and then finally got it. They somehow, I think somebody there was aware of me, and because of the nature, I always or usually play some kind of smug douchebag, and so somebody I think knew who I was, but I got offered that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, great. And everything about that job, getting to do Law and Order, it's such a New York actor thing to do, but it was not my world at all. So really getting to do it was really cool. Being in the courtroom set was really cool. They wanted me to, they asked, they wanted to give me a look because everything's based on real people. And I guess whoever I was patterned after was apparently litigious. So they really wanted to go out of their way to make me look different. And they asked if I'd be open to dyeing my hair blonde. I was like, fuck yes. That was so, and they sent me to a really nice salon in Manhattan. I was there for like 3-4 hours, just getting my hair dyed, work done. It was so fun.
That's the Chicago way, yes, and in something weird and different. In 1997, when you did the Jenny McCarthy show, you were a writer and you were in sketches. The other writers, I can't believe this. Will Forte, Bob Odenkirk. What was that experience like? Obviously, it was short lived, but what was that like?
It was a really great job. It was a ton of fun. That's one of those shows that I think people, it's easy to go, oh, Jenny McCarthy, blah, blah, blah. I think it was a good show. It obviously had plenty of clunkers, but every sketch show does.
She's really nice too, which helps. I've met her before. She's really nice.
Yeah, and everybody, like the cast was really funny. Obviously, the writing staff. Odenkirk, I don't think he was definitely not full time. He probably submitted a couple things, is my guess. Probably knew the producer, this guy named Joel Gallen, who just, he was great. He's got a really good sense of humor, good sensibility. He knows what's funny. He let me and John Benjamin do a couple bits. He hired good people. I mean, obviously Forte is a really genius performer, writer, and this is before he was a performer. Had so many great sketches that he wrote, and just one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Yeah. He and Brian Stack are very similar, just super sweetheart, normal, quiet guys off camera, and super weird, crazy shit on camera, extremely funny. So it was a good experience. I liked that job a lot. It's where I met John Benjamin. And, plenty of other writers there were super nice, and very good time.
Right after that, you wrote for the Keenan Ivory Wayne show. That was late night. What was that like?
That was more short-lived. That was less of a good fit. That was more like, I need a job. This job came up. I got it. And one of the hardest parts, the best thing about that job was I met Vernon Chatman there, who's part of this group called PFFR. And the other guy, John Lee, and this woman, Allison Levy, that's their group. And if you don't know them, they're geniuses. And they make their own shows. They made Wonder Chosen, which is one of the most incredible shows ever made. And if you don't know it, I'm speaking more to the audience. You have to find it and watch it. And then they've also made their own shows. And when I was making Delocated and I had to hire a production company, they had just started to do that, to produce shows, and it was an easy hire, an easy decision. And so me and John and Vernon did the bulk of the writing for all my shows. But so that is where I met Vernon. And it's why I always tell people, like, if you're young and you're a writer and you have a job and you're like, I don't know about this job, just take it at the beginning. Like, take a job. You get money, health insurance, and you never know who you're going to meet on those jobs that may either hire you down the road. You'll hire them down the road, whatever. So that's where I met Vernon. And there was a couple other guys in our office, and we at least, all huddled together and I got along very well with Keenan. He was really nice. Most people there were really nice. Just comedy wise, it wasn't a great fit. And I tried to stick around for one more writing cycle just for the money, and I just was not enjoying it. What also made it worse, to add insult to injury, not that it was injury, I had a job and I was getting paid. Mr. Show had just started that same time. I tried getting hired there, never didn't get it. Not surprised. That was a very competitive job. But they were like rehearsing next door. We could literally hear them like on the other side of the wall having the fucking best time. I went to some of the tapings. Like that made it harder.
That show is genius. I mean, it's still is as funny. It's like Larry Sanders Show. It still holds up. I mean, it's unbelievable, that show. Dinner with Parents, you got to go to London for 4 months. That's John Beckerman. That show was on Freevee, and it was a lot of fun.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Freevee.
Yeah, it happens. But what was that like doing that show for 4 months in London?
It was incredible. It's one of the best, just overall experiences of my life. The show was fine. Like it lasted a season and didn't get picked up, sadly. And I'm not surprised. It's on Freevee, which is not even a thing anymore. And it's really hard. Like, I don't know how they're deciding to pick up a show or not. It really felt like it didn't get a fair shake. The promotion felt like they should be promoting this more. Do people even know about it? There wasn't nothing, but we all felt like, especially me and Michaela Watkins and Dan Backadall, who had done more shows and were used to publicity, were like, why is there not more? Again, it wasn't nothing, but it really felt like it didn't have a chance to prove itself. And I think it would have found an audience. But for me, as a work experience, I play, it's about this Jewish family. It's based on a British show. But this was set in America, but we filmed it in London because of the British production company and the tax credit. It was actually, I guess, cheaper to fly all these Americans out. Regardless, I'm thankful for it all because I got to be in London for 4 months, and it's about a Jewish family and their older kids, and they do Friday night dinners on the weekends, which is called Shabbat. I'm the neighbor. So I was barely in the show. There were 10 episodes. I was only contracted for 7. Now they could have put me in more if they eventually decided to, but first year of a show, the money's not as much. I didn't think it was going to change, and it didn't. And I knew going in that I would at least have 3 weeks off. I didn't know if that would be 3 weeks in a row. So I went into it with a real plan of treat this as a one and done in case the show doesn't get picked up. Really, really just soak this opportunity up. And I did. I really tried to get out and explore. I had so much time off to the point that it felt weird.
They get paid. It's amazing. On your Instagram, what is your Instagram handle? Because you can see some fun photos of you around England.
It's just Jon Glaser, but it's spelled differently. JahnGlayzer. But if you look me up, you'll find that I have a huge Jew fro that I had at the time. This is like back in 2005. But yeah, I had a ton of time off. I really enjoy this sport called gravel cycling, which is basically just off-road bicycling, but not mountain biking. It's more touring style, road style frame with knobby tires and easier gearing for hills and dirt roads. I ended up buying a new bike as a present to myself, which probably couldn't afford it, but I did it anyway. And it was this British frame. Like I found this British bike company I'd never heard of. They make stunning bikes. They're the oldest bike company in the world called Pearson. Check them out if you're a cyclist. So I did a few really stunningly beautiful country rides, like one in the Surrey Hills, one north of London in this area called the Chilterns. I met this guy named John Hurd who co-runs this cycling touring company called Wild Cycles. Like I met him on a group ride. They asked, who are you? What are you doing here? Oh, you're an American, blah, blah, blah. I told him why I was there. He's like, oh, give me your number. I'll take you on a ride sometime. And he took me on a couple stunning rides. And so
that's wonderful.
Those were in and of itself just the greatest. And yeah, you can see some photos on my Instagram, just gorgeous, beautiful, perfect weather, So it was a great experience. I got reconnected with Mark Wooten, who played the Glaze in Delocated. He's British. He lives there. Spent some time with his family. Just took advantage of my time off. Did a lot of really fun things. Explored. I wish I had done more, but I got to do quite a bit of things that I wanted to do. Most notably the gravel cycle. I could just go on and on. It's so fucking boring if you're not into cycling, but I just loved it. Oh my
You've done
God.
so much in your career. I have to ask, because this is about late night, doing the Jason Kelsey late night show in Pennsylvania, I believe you taped, correct? And what was that like? And I know that It's All Right to Cry was that was your pitch, correct?
Yeah, he's I got, again, this was something that I got offered. I didn't even know about it. My agent just called. I think they reached out to my agent just because this guy named Jason Weber, who works at NFL Films was the production company for the show. And a guy named Jason Weber, who works there, used to work at the show Cheap Seats that the Sklar brothers did. And he knew me from then. And Jason Kelsey, there's a lot of Jasons at the show. There was Jason Weber, Jason Kelsey. Jason Kelsey's agent is Jason. And so I think Bernstein. And so Jason Weber recommended me because Jason Kelsey is a huge Conan fan. So because Kelsey was kind of, among many things known as a crier, I think he had this really kind of famous long speech when he retired, just nonstop crying. And he's a real emotional guy, which is, I think, a great thing. And so that was one of the first things I thought of was It's All Right to Cry, thinking that he would like it. And he did. And, that's, if you don't know it, It's All Right to Cry is from Free to Be You and Me, which is a legendary, touchy-feely, warm, fuzzy, new agey, Marlo Thomas produced kids documentary from the 70s. And It's All Right to Cry was a song sung by then NFL and to this day NFL legend, but he was a current player, Rosie Greer. Now at the time, Rosie Greer was a, giant black man. And to have a giant black man in the early 70s singing It's All Right to Cry, I think is pretty, talk about revolutionary. Like you're going to have a lot of people like, what the fuck? I don't know. I think it was a really incredible thing to do at the time. And he was known for that. He was I think he was a big knitter or did like crocheting, but it's a pretty incredible piece. And we just recreated that on the show. It was awesome. It was awesome.
That's really fun. I emailed with Rosie Greer trying to get him to be on this podcast, but he told me he's retired. But he was telling me about he really enjoyed his Johnny Carson appearances. Before we go, I have to mention, I want to talk about briefly, at least, your Jon Glaser's soothing meditations for the solitary dog. You went on Fallon to promote this. I know that you did. You went, I think, to the West Coast as well and did a show. You did a show here at the Bell House. Tell us about it, please.
So that's an album that I made in 2023 during that big actor-writer strike. And Eugene Merman has a small label that he started called Pretty Good Friends. And it's really for his friends to make these small, weird ideas that you're not going to get to make anywhere else. And you're not going to make a lot of money unless you get lucky and it catches on. And, with streaming now, it's almost impossible to make money unless you tour. So, excuse me, but the premise of it is if you have an anxious dog and you have to leave that dog home alone and that dog has a tough time being home alone, you can put on my album. It's very soothing. The joke being that it's a comedy album and it's not soothing at all. Although it tries to maintain that level throughout, even when things go wrong during the recording. So we did an album release party and I thought it was really fun. I thought we wanted to do a paint and sip, which I thought would be really fun, where people can, that's an advanced ticket option. You pay more money, but you get early admission, a good seat, free glass of wine, and a little canvas and a watercolor set. You paint your dog or cat or pet. We hang those on stage to dry. And then when the general admission people come in here, they're greeted by all these portraits of animals. And it's just really, and that's how I start the show, with a Q&A. So at Sketchfest in San Francisco, that following winter in 24, we did the show out there and I tried the paint and sip and it was so much fun. It was really transcendent for me because it had this real sweetness to it that I really liked. And it's all about dogs, and which is something I just love my dog so much. He's behind me on the bed. Oh, there he is.
He's all over Instagram.
sleeping.
He's Instagram famous on your.
Well, he's all over it because he's just, he's on, if you see the album, he's on the cover. It's me and him on the cover. I've put so many photos and videos of him online as I'm promoting the shows. So that's and the show is now something I'm working on to potentially tour. I just did it at the Bell House in Brooklyn a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I did it in Chicago a few months ago, San Francisco at Sketchfest last year. So it's a new thing. I'm figuring it out, working on that, but I really, really like it quite a bit. It's got a real sweet quality, and it's got a lot of really dumb Glaser-ish comedy in it as well. But the portraits are really, really, really fun.
Yeah, everyone go to Jon Glaser's Instagram. Thank you for doing this. I know you do these sometimes. I hope this went well. How did you think it went?
I'll email you later and give you some feedback. I'll give you some notes. No, this was great. Thanks for having me.
I really
Much appreciated. No, it's fun to talk about the late night stuff, man. I still can't believe I got to work at Conan. It was the best.
Oh, they were lucky to have you. I mean, it's amazing. Go on YouTube if you want to laugh. If you're having a bad day, if you're having a good day, go on YouTube and put in Jon's name, and you will laugh for sure. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, man. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. On Apple Podcasts, please rate it and leave a review. Be sure to go to latenighter.com for all your late night TV news. And you can find my podcast at latenighter.com/podcasts. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Tuesday.